Hey guys, a few days ago we received the first official Game of Thrones Season 8 teaser. This teaser includes a detailed description of the opening scene, the largest battle scene ever filmed for not only Game of Thrones but for the television in general, and the mysterious scene from the very finale. I did breakdown of all of this, so if you haven't seen it already, make sure to do so. Anyways, let's take a look at a scene from the finale that might be confirming some of my most popular theories in which Ned Stark or Rhaegar Targaryen could be alive. An exclusive report and description of this mysterious scene from the series finale says, what's being filmed here is episode 6, the series finale. Like Harrington going into the table read, I don't know anything about the final season storyline. I look around at a meticulously constructed set that I've never seen on the show before. Several actors are performing and I'm stunned. There are characters in the finale that I did not expect. I gradually begin to piece together what has happened in Westeros over the previous 5 episodes and try not to look like I'm freaking out. It's noted that there are characters in the last episodes of Game of Thrones that he did not expect. Now, as I already said in the previous video, we don't know if this means there are characters we do not expect in terms of them surviving that long, or if this means that there are some unexpected characters reappearing in the very last episode. It could very well just be one of the main characters surviving more than we expected, but what really leave the reporter stunned. He's stunned, he's freaking out about this character appearing in the series finale, meaning that it's probably a character no one expects coming back in the series ever again. Additionally, I think it's probably a character who we think is dead reappearing and leaving us in shock. With that being said, let's take a look at who might be this character whose presence in the Game of Thrones finale will leave us stunned and make us freak out. As my most popular theory states, it could be that fans' favorite character Ned Stark is not dead but is rather alive and will finally reappear. I've never really been into those theories in which someone we saw dying is actually alive, but upon rewatching the show and upon rereading the books, I came up to this theory, and as much as this theory has been accepted among the fandom and shared by all the most popular mainstream media, it's also been rejected by many. However, none can claim that this theory doesn't sound somewhat convincing after hearing out all the hints and clues. Okay, let's take a look at the theory as well as at all the clues and hints we have about the possibility of the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms, Eddard Stark, being alive and reappearing in the series finale. In this theory, a man that was beheaded by Sir Ilyn Payne on the steps of the Great Septo Baelor was not actually Ned himself, but was Jaqen H'ghar wearing a Ned's face. Okay, as we all know, Eddard, upon trying to carry out the justice and Robert's will, was betrayed by Slynt and Baelish, whereupon he was imprisoned in the black cells beneath the Red Keep. At the same time, a mysterious man introducing himself as a Lorathi criminal, who we later found out is a Faceless Man assassin, was also arrested and put in the dungeons. So why did Jaqen get himself arrested? To save Ned's life? Perhaps. We know for a fact that Jaqen clearly got himself arrested on purpose, since the Faceless Man assassin most certainly could not have ever been arrested against his will. According to this theory, Jaqen H'ghar was highly paid for his services, which in this case would be helping Ned Stark to avoid the death. And no, it's not what you're probably thinking right now. Jaqen did not switch his face with Ned, he switched it with Syrio Forel. You might be confused at this point, but I promise you'll understand everything once we're done. As we all know, Syrio Forel is a master sword fighter from the free city of Braavos, hired by Ned Stark to train his daughter Arya upon discovering that his daughter owns a sword. Upon Ned's arrest, Lannister Guard led by Sir Merry Trent of the Kingsguard came for Arya to take her into custody, which ended with Syrio engaging Sir Merry with his wooden sword. By this theory, Syrio did not die, as he was still far better with his wooden sword than a dozen of Lannister guards along with Sir Merry Trent, which is a fact, and according to this theory, Syrio managed to defeat him. The evidence supporting this part of a theory would be the scene in which the Hound laughed so hard on Arya's statement that she learned how to fight from the first Sword of Braavos, who was apparently killed by Sir Meryn, who was one of the worst fighters and members of the Kingsguard probably in its history. So at this point of the theory, Ned Stark and Jaqen were in their cells, which matches with the Game of Thrones series. While in this theory, Syrio also did not die and was still in King's Landing. He then decided to help Ned Stark. By this theory, Jaqen H'ghar was arrested on purpose, which is most likely true since I cannot imagine that a faceless man could have been arrested against his will. Jaqen got himself arrested because of Ned Stark in order to get himself into the dungeons where Ned is, and in order to help him, in order to sacrifice his life for Ned's. It's said that for a good price, a cult of religious assassins that worship the many-faced god will grant the gift of death to anyone in the world. But will they for a good price offer their own life to the many-faced god, which Jaqen by this theory did, is also questionable. According to this theory, Jaqen H'ghar, Faceless Man, created a face that looked just like Ned's and wore it on the day of Ned's beheading, which would mean that instead of Ned, it was Jaqen who died, who was beheaded in the front steps of the Great Septo Baelor. Faceless men kill people, take their faces, and wear them when it's necessary to disguise themselves or to accomplish a task. But are they able to create faces from other faces to portray? If you're wondering what was Syrio's role, it's actually pretty simple. Both Jaqen and Ned were arrested and were in their cells, which means that while Jaqen H'ghar replaced his face with a face almost identical to Ned Stark's, someone had to release Ned free. That someone also had to replace Jaqen and take Jaqen's face. So at this point, Jaqen replaced his Lorathi criminal face with Ned's face that he created himself, while Ned Stark was released free from his cell with the help of Syrio Forel, which was not that hard, not to mention impossible, since Varys also could have done the same if he wanted to. So Jaqen is beheaded, Ned Stark is set free, and Syria took Jaqen's former face of the Lorathi criminal and continued to portray him. He was recruited by Yorn, and he's the one who helped Arya multiple times.
Knows his name.
There's only one god and you know his name, said Jaqen to Arya, which might be a confirmation that Syria took face of a faceless man that died for Ned, took a face of Jaqen H'ghar. How so, you might wonder if you've not been paying close attention while watching the show. Well, it would explain how Jaqen knew that Arya already knows God's name, which she in fact knew because Syria already told her during their training. A few seasons earlier, Syria said to her there's only one god and his name is Death. Isn't it interesting how Jaqen knows that Syria already told her the name of one true god? If this theory comes true in the final season, it would also explain why Jaqen was so protective towards Arya and why he taught her to become a skilled fighter. It would also explain how Jaqen knew that Arya already knows the name of one true god, and most importantly, why Jaqen H'ghar was smiling when Arya said to him, "A girl is Arya Stark from Winterfell and I'm going home." It's because Jaqen was Syria Forel all along. Upon rereading the books, I've also found some kind of a hidden hints in there that are going favor to this theory with Jaqen wore Ned's face and was beheaded. The first hint would be Sansa's claim that her father's head looked weirdly unlike her father. The second hint would be Catelyn's statement that Ned's bones don't look like Ned's but rather like someone smaller than Ned. And the last third hint would be Arya's statement that Ned on execution day looked different, which she thinks was the result of Ned's injury that he got from his confrontation with Jaime. But let's face it, a wounded leg doesn't change your facial features. One final clue could be the last words of Ned Stark just a moment before he was beheaded. Ned muttered a few words to himself, and as I keep rewatching and rewatching it, I'm more and more certain that he says all men must die, Valem Morghulis. As much as Ned Stark saying a greeting in High Valyrian language that is common in Braavos sounds ridiculous, it might be a hidden hint that Ned Stark is actually alive, because if Ned truly said Valem Morghulis before his beheading, it might be some kind of a proof that is going favor to my theory that I brought to you over a year ago. It was Jaqen who muttered to himself, all men must die, Valem Morghulis, while wearing Ned's face. Let's take a look at the final clue that came with a reunion between the Stark sisters.
It doesn't look like him.
Maybe this scene is supposed to be a connection between the books and the show, since in the books Arya says that her father on execution day looked different, and now in the show she says his statue looks nothing like him. Is this supposed to foreshadow Ned's comeback that would definitely leave us stunned and make us all freak out? Is Ned Stark truly going to fulfill the last promise he's ever given, him being the one to reveal Jon the truth about his parents? Perhaps it's Rhaegar Targaryen, who we don't expect to see ever again, reappearing in the series finale alive and well. In this theory, Rhaegar Targaryen, the son of the Mad King, the brother of Dany and the father of Jon Snow, basically one of the most important characters in the Game of Thrones, is not dead but is rather alive and is one of the faceless men of Braavos. When you look at it, Rhaegar Targaryen and Jaqen H'ghar have a lot of similarities. Fans mostly point out the fact that both of them share the same grace and have the same long wavy hair. If Jaqen does indeed turn out to be Rhaegar, the silver streak in his hair would not be the only indication, as there are many more clues in both the books and the show series. Let's start from the very beginning, from Rhaegar's alleged death. The story says Prince Rhaegar met Lord Robert Baratheon in combat at a ford during the Battle of the Trident, where the pair had a legendary duel in the raging rivers of the Trident. Rhaegar, despite wounding Robert, was struck down with a massive blow from Robert's warhammer, which scattered the rubies encrusted in Rhaegar's armor under the water. It said that the rubies flew like drops of blood from the chest of a dying prince, and he sank to his knees in the water and with his last breath murmured the woman's name. While Rhaegar was lying dead in the stream, soldiers of both armies scrabbled in the water to search for the rubies. Thereafter, the location was named the Ruby Ford. Let's firstly point out the obvious. It specifically highlighted that Rhaegar wore his iconic Night Black plate armor with the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen decorated in rubies on his breastplate. Additionally, the ford in which this battle took place is named for the rubies that were knocked from Prince Rhaegar's breastplate. Now, why is it so important for George R. R. Martin as well as for the showrunners to make it very clear that Rhaegar wore his iconic armor that had rubies attached to it? Why so much focus on Rhaegar's rubies? Why is it such a big plot point and subject brought up whenever the Battle of the Trident or Rhaegar are brought up? In this theory, it's foreshadowing that Robert did not fight Rhaegar, but rather someone else who had glamored himself in the form of Rhaegar using rubies. As it was confirmed in the 6th season, rubies can be used to glamour its owners into a form or person they want to be. Melisandre uses it to hide her true form of an extremely old woman. In the books, Mance Rayder also glamored to appear as Rattleshirt via the ruby in his wrist cuff. The power in rubies is something called glamour, where you can basically use them with the power of the Lord of Light to project a different image of yourself. If Melisandre and Mance can use it, it's most certainly not out of the realm of possibilities that someone had glamoured himself in the form of Rhaegar using these same rubies and sacrificed his life for the beloved prince. After the fall of House Targaryen and the world believing him dead, in this theory Rhaegar went to Braavos and the House of Black and White to become a faceless man, just as Arya Stark did when her house fell and when everyone thought she was dead. If Rhaegar in fact is not wearing a face of Jaqen H'ghar, it would be very strange for a faceless man to allow himself being captured and thrown in the black cells without a good reason. That reason could be to save Ned Stark and take his place on the execution day, but helping Ned's daughter would also be a good reason if Jaqen is not some random faceless man paid for his services, but rather Rhaegar himself. If it truly is Rhaegar, then he had a very good reason to be captured, which is returning a favor to Ned Stark of protecting his child just like Ned protected his. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities that Rhaegar came back to King's Landing as Jaqen to try and help protect the child of a man who is the sole reason his son Jon is alive and well. It's also quite interesting how it seems like Jaqen saw Lyanna in Arya from the very start. In one of their conversations, Jaqen says to Arya, "A girl has more courage than sense." This sentence was also accompanied with a smile on his face. Everyone who knew Lyanna claims that Arya is just like her, not only by look but also by courage and wildness. So Rhaegar not only helps Arya, who looks and behaves just like her aunt Lyanna, returning a favor of protecting his child to Ned, but he also later trains her to become someone she, just like her aunt Lyanna, always wanted to be, a fighter. It's also important to highlight that if Jaqen is some random faceless man assassin, he would not be happy and proud of Arya when she reclaimed her Stark name and rejected to be no one, neither would he allow her to leave. So Jaqen is either Rhaegar Targaryen or Syrio Forel, as the previous theory states. In conclusion, the unexpected character playing a role in the Game of Thrones finale that will leave us stunned and make us freak out could potentially be Ned Stark or Rhaegar Targaryen. Let me know your opinion about these theories. I'm curious, who do you think could be this mysterious character?